Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited for today's video because I'm going to be talking all about my home water birth experience, and we have a special guest today with us.
It's me. Oh no, just kidding. It's Everett.
This is our baby boy.
You can't really see him. Say hi. He's sleeping.
Yeah, he's sleeping. He wanted to be a part of the video. Everett was born on April 21st, 2020. He was 9 days late, but on time. And today I wanted to share a little bit more about our home water birth experience from the perspective of Patrick, just because I already wrote a blog post about my perspective.
Yeah, well, we had decided to do a home birth even before we got pregnant. It was actually probably more my idea than Diana's, oddly enough. I mean, I was interested in it. I wasn't.
That's true.
I was open either way, but we had a number of friends who had done a home birth, so we had decided that long before even getting pregnant. But then it actually turned out to be really cool because, as you guys all know, starting in February, March, whenever that was, the whole coronavirus thing hit. And so when we would tell people we were pregnant, we would have so many people just get really concerned, like, oh my gosh, like, are you guys being careful? Like, you know, do you have to still go into the hospital for your baby visits? Like, are you gonna be able to be there for the birth? Is your family gonna be able to come see the baby? Just, you know, this kind of, them being nervous of us having to go to a hospital in the midst of this, you know, craziness with the pandemic going on. So it was really cool for us. We felt really lucky that we had been planning on doing the home birth all along because it meant we still got to do the birth our way. We didn't really have to worry about of changing our plans too much or having to worry so much about it because we were just going to do it from the comfort of our own home. The day it actually happened, I was giving Diana a hard time because I could tell she was starting to have some contraction symptoms again. But then around 12 o'clock, she tells me, oh, I'm going to go to the acupuncturist, which is like a 30-minute drive away. And I'm like, you're going to drive yourself to the acupuncturist while you're having contractions? Like, no. But she was really adamant. So I ended up going with her so I could drive. So she still had her acupuncture that day. And then later that afternoon is when she actually started to go into what we call like real labor, where she was having, active labor, having the contractions regularly. They were building in intensity. They were coming every 5 or 6 minutes, and we were like, okay, this is the real deal. We were real calm at first. I'm texting our midwife, just saying, hey, we think this is it. So I'm texting with her. I'm just trying to stay calm as Diana is laboring, and the contractions are getting stronger and stronger. And so I'm texting with her, and she's kind of telling me like, well, you just let us know when you want us to come. So I'm kind of like, well, gosh, like, how do I know when's the right moment? She just kept saying like, you'll know when the right moment is. I'm like, okay. And at some point, her labor started to get more intense, and those started to come every about 2.5 minutes. That was around 7:30. At that point, I could feel myself getting more nervous, so I texted the midwife and said, hey, I think it's time. You guys should come over here. So they showed up around 7:30 and kind of helped us get ready. Like Diana said, we did a water birth, so we had to set up a little kiddie pool, which was kind of fun. So we set the pool up, they helped with that, they helped get everything ready, helped kind of set the environment. We just did it in our bedroom next to our bed, put down a bunch of plastic sheeting and everything just to make sure everything stayed clean and all that. And then probably around 10 o'clock is when Diana got into the pool for the first time. So she was still in active labor, she was still just contracting, hadn't started pushing yet. Oftentimes I was either kind of sitting across from her or sitting next to her as she lied in the pool or sat in the pool, just holding her hand, just trying to be there for her, be encouraging. And I could tell that they were getting more intense. I could tell just by the way her body was reacting. I could tell by the sounds she was making. And as her husband, like, on the one hand, it's so incredibly powerful and encouraging to see your wife. It's like, man, like, she's doing it. She did it unmedicated, and she's just in there doing this thing. And just, I was so amazed by her strength and so amazed by just her body, that her body and women's bodies are created to do that. But then on the other side as well, I also had this like, kind of like pain and a little bit of apprehension or fear, other than just being here to support her. Like, I can't help her with this. I can't, like, she has to really do this on her own. And so as those contractions started to get stronger, and there was a few moments when I could tell it was really painful for her, that was when I just felt my heart just getting pulled, like, oh, come on, like, let's get through this as quick as we can. You know, I don't want her to be in pain. But she was such a trooper through it. And right around 1 o'clock in the morning, this is on the 21st now, I think technically they would call it transition phase, which is where you're moving from the contractions, which is sort of just the involuntary contracting of the uterus.
Yeah, I think it's like phase 1 is all the contractions, and the transition is right when you enter phase 2, which is pushing time. So
yes.
That was the hardest part for me, transition for sure, because at least with phase 1, I have a pretty relatively high pain tolerance. So I was telling Patrick, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 3, and then it would jump from 3 to 5. And then transition, it jumped to like a 9, I would say, maybe even more. And so
that's also when you have kind of a big shift in hormones during that time, and so it also,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you go like, you have sort of an emotional peak, and so that's usually the moment when like most women will be like, I can't do this, give me the medication, or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
Because there's sort of like, it's like you're transitioning from the phase of just sort of being in the zone to like all of a sudden this peak of hormones. You're more alert, you're more aware, and the pain is really strong.
Yeah. And I think even more than the pain, you're just like so exhausted. I did think in my head like, oh, I don't think I could physically do this.
Yeah.
And you said that you could tell when I was in that place, right?
I could definitely tell. One of the things I'll say as a pro of having a home birth is most midwives, I would say, at least in our experience, they tend to be a lot more mom focused, and they also tend to be much more proponent of doing it naturally. Their philosophy tends to be more of like, hey, your body was made to have this baby. And I think oftentimes in a hospital, you know, because they're a little bit more of a business, like they want things to look a certain way, and if your pregnancy doesn't follow that schedule or that you know, ABCD kind of line of events, oftentimes they want to intervene, whereas a midwife tends to be a lot more hands-off. Like, hey, you know what? Every woman's body is different. Every pregnancy story is different. Unless we really feel like there's a high risk, we're going to let you do what you're going to do. And they were really good about, in those moments when Diana was really feeling it, like reminding her, hey, this is all natural. Like, your body knows what to do. Your body can survive this. Very
and there's literally nothing invasive, excuse me, there's nothing invasive about a home birth, because they didn't ever check my cervix to see how dilated I was, which I was actually really grateful for.
They will if you ask. But
yeah.
Funny side story, we had Riley in the bedroom with us the entire time. We had not really planned on that one way or the other. We knew she would be in the house, but we didn't know how she was going to react to the whole thing.
Riley's our dog, by the way.
Riley's our dog. He was sitting on our bed in between the birth pillow, just in there resting.
My pregnancy pillow.
She was so calm the entire time, and it was basically, she would kind of watch. She had her head propped on the pillow, and she would watch Diana labor for a while. Sometimes she would sleep. If Diana got especially loud or it got especially intense, she would get up off the bed, come over, put her face next to mom's face.
It was very comforting for me.
Yeah, be a comforting presence through the birth.
Around 1 o'clock, that's when my body started to push. And I think that's when I really started to make like noises, you know, because up until that point, I think I was pretty good. Of course, there were some times. No, you don't think so?
You were making a lot of noises.
Oh.
Groaning matched the
intensity?
Peak and intensity of the contraction.
Oh man.
I was like, there it goes. Oh, okay, she's coming back down.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, again, I was not medicated, so I was feeling all of the waves.
Yeah.
And
you don't have to be ashamed of it.
I don't remember.
I like it. It was that womanly just grunt. So she started pushing, and most of that time I was sitting right beside the pool, right next to her, and she was kind of laying on her side during most
I was switching positions a lot, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that she was either doing that, or she was kind of up squatting, and I was holding her as she kind of leaned forward onto me and squatted and pushed. That was amazing, and it was just really cool for me to be a part of it. I think, you know, again, in a hospital, the men typically the husbands are not overly involved, even if they're in the room. In the home birth context, I just very much felt like I got to be a part of it. I mean, I was the main one. I don't want to say interacting with her, because she was kind of in her zone, but I was the main one just there for her, supporting her, holding her hand, putting cold rags on the back of her neck when she got hot, things like that. But it was just amazing, again, just to see it. She pushed for probably about an hour and a half. First hour, it was really hard to tell what kind of progress she was making because not a lot happened. The midwife, she would come in and she would use the monitor to check the baby's heart rate to make sure he was fine. And she would kind of just on the outside feel and sort of check where the baby's position was. He was fine the whole time. He was head down, face back in the right position the entire time. So they're just kind of checking that. And then as she's pushing, every once in a while in between contractions, they would come feel and they could kind of tell his progress. And so with about 30 minutes left, and we have no idea how much longer this is going to go, one of the midwives says, okay, he's really getting low. His heart rate is great. He's in the right position. She actually said, I don't know if this is TMI to share, but she said, Diana, why don't you like reach up and like you could probably feel him. He's low enough. And so we couldn't really see anything yet. But
I remember I did not want to do that.
Yeah.
I was like, no, he's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel any progress.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But then she did it, and like the minute she touched his head, she like became a new woman. Like there was like this new wave, this like second wind of energy. She was like, oh my gosh, like the baby, he's like right there. He's ready to come out. And I felt him. I like touched my baby.
And I remember I was thinking like, he's squishy. And they're like, he's in the water sac. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, why is he so squishy?
Yeah, so her water didn't break. So they noticed it starting to leak, but her actual water or sac around him didn't break until like 10 minutes before he came out, which is pretty amazing as well.
Right before my big final push, I heard a pop. And they said that was the water breaking. And I thought that was super cool.
After that, she pushed a few more times, and then we could see he was starting to come out, and that was super crazy for me. And I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, so we could start to see him coming out. That's when I started to get really emotional. I had actually gotten in the pool at that point because they said, oh, why don't you go in so you can catch him? I didn't know which side he was going to come out on, so I was standing behind her, and the midwives were in front of her, and she ended up catching him. So she kind of brought him out this way.
Yeah, he came out forward, and then my midwife was like, catch your baby. And I was like, what? She said, catch your baby. So I like reached into the water and I picked him up and I was like, oh my God. Crazy.
So he came out. I noticed right away that he had the cord around his neck and again around his body really tight.
So glad I don't remember that.
Yeah, he also was really listless. Like he wasn't really moving. He hadn't started crying yet. But when he came out and they saw that, they all kind of quickly jumped up and they helped get the cord, unwrapped from his body and started moving his body around. So they were massaging his legs, moving his arms, moving him around just to kind of get the blood flowing. And then finally he kind of coughed and started breathing, and then he started screaming, like crying quietly, then crying loudly. And once he started crying loudly, I was like, all right, he's healthy, he's good to go.
After he came out, they laid me on the bed, brought baby to chest, so I got to do some skin to skin with Everett.
And they kind of checked you out while
yeah, they were checking on me. I did have a few first-degree tears, but they said it was really minimal and minor. And then after the 20-30 minutes, I actually started to feel super lightheaded. I had lost a lot of blood, so they actually gave me a half a dose of Pitocin to stop the bleeding and gave me a bag of IV fluid bag just to keep me hydrated.
That was kind of my next thing that I started to get a little nervous about. I know my baby's okay, he seems good. Now I'm kind of concerned about my wife. And so we were sitting on the bed, they were kind of working on her, making sure she was okay. Right at that point as well, Riley jumped in the bed and we were kind of leaning up against the bedpost, and Riley came and sat right in between us, right in front of us. And she stood up super tall and super proud. I was just looking at her and I was like, I think she's like being the guard dog right now. I think she's just proudly protecting her new little brother who just came into the world.
Definitely a bonding experience with the four of us as a family.
So that was it. So he came out around 2:30. Everything, she did her first breastfeeding after that. She kind of recovered quickly. Then we had some family, both of our parents came over around 4:30. We got to introduce him to them, which was super special. All in all, I think it was a fairly smooth birth, and we're just so thankful for that. We're so thankful that everyone's healthy. We're so thankful that everything went as smoothly as it did, that we didn't have to transfer to a hospital, that there weren't any complications. So we're super happy about that. We will definitely be doing a home birth again. It was a great experience. We totally recommend it. And that is our birth story.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how Everett Scott Gunderson has come into the world.
Here's our Lion King moment.
I think that is the perfect way to wrap up this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope this video helped give you a little bit of perspective and what happens behind a home water birth. Obviously, everyone's birth story is different, but I wouldn't change mine for the world. And now we have our little nugget here. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it down in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Bye.